Welcome back to another episode of IndieFilm Insider. My name is Owen Carr, a DP and producer here with
Jake Ross Bell, a writer and director.
And today we have another solo episode for all you guys. This is going to be talking about all of the roles within a film production and what they all do and kind of like the chain of command within each department for all the roles that there are. We have 55 different roles, all ranging from writing to production to post-production and everything in between. So, a couple of things to note real quick before we actually get started. You'll notice a pattern with all of these roles is the structure of all of them, of all the roles within a department, are actually pretty similar, very similar to the traditional structure of departments in like corporate management. So you'll see a really quick pattern emerge where it's like director and like supervisor of the department, and then like the assistant, and then all the grunts who do all the grunt work.
Exactly. All the betas.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, of course, naturally, 55 roles. I would not expect anyone to have, or any like indie film to have that many people on set at any given time. A lot of these roles are condensed on indie sets, of course, but this is kind of like the minimum amount of people required for a bigger indie film or like a Hollywood film. And of course, this can be expanded on, and you could have like multiple people for every role if you need to. And then 55 is like a lot of people, but it pales in comparison to a lot of the people that are credited on actual Hollywood sets. So we're missing a few specialty roles, but also a lot of the people who are credited on the bigger Hollywood sets are people like construction workers, people who build the sets. A lot of the times, like, we're gonna have like grip, for example. If you want to learn what a grip or a key grip does, check out the last episode with Dean Garcia, shameless plug.
Exactly.
But oftentimes there are probably like 12, 15, 20 grips on any given set. So if 55 seems a little low, that's because it is, and that's because a lot of these roles, like especially the lowest level ones, have sometimes upwards of dozens of people.
Yeah, and this is only, and 55 again is kind of a lot, but also kind of not a lot. We've deleted a lot of different roles we have that we could have done, could have explored. That's just mainly because like this podcast could be like several hours long if we didn't do that. So you're gonna see a lot of assistants, a lot of stuff like that. We just sort of eliminated all of the unnecessary assistants, but some assistants you're gonna see even on smaller sets. So
yeah, exactly. And then if we missed any that you are acutely aware of, let us know in the comments below. Cool. Want to start off with producer?
Yes, we'll start with producer. The producer is going to be the person in charge of basically overseeing the majority of the production of the film. That it can include financing, hiring, logistics. They are not to be confused with like a director, and I think a lot of people don't really understand not if you're in the film industry. I'm sure you must if you don't understand what a producer does, then get out of the film industry. But if you are a person on the outside, a person on the outside might assume a producer just sort of like throws money at something and then expects it to be done. But a producer can have actually like a lot more like hands-on work, especially with just like getting people together and then hiring people and basically all that fun stuff.
Yeah, like a producer, a lot of the times, it's kind of a mindset shift when you look at films, because a lot of the people look at like a Tarantino film or a Nolan film and be like, that is Tarantino's film, that is Christopher Nolan's film. For them, yes, but a lot of the times for a lot of the mid or lower tier, like less known films, it is the producer's film more than anyone else's. For indie films, especially, the producer is in charge of getting all the crew together, managing locations if they don't have a location manager, which we'll talk about in a minute, but like basically doing everything you need to actually manage the logistics of a film that's on the producer. You mentioned throwing money at a film, and that's what the executive producer does.
Exactly.
They often just throw money at films. Honestly, nowadays, the executive producer just is kind of more of a vanity role than anything else.
I think, yeah.
A lot of the times you'll see like big movies with like a star attached as the leading role, they'll also get credited as an executive producer.
Yeah.
And that's really more often than not. It's like, hey, would you want to be in this film? It'll be 15% less than what you normally charge, but you'll get an executive producer credit.
Yeah, pretty much a little bit more of a simplified version of a producer in many ways, just because it might sound more prestigious and more like awesome, but yeah, really realistically probably does a lot less in terms of like all the like actual hands-on stuff they do.
Yeah. You'll see like The Rock is an EP on a lot of his films.
Yeah.
Or like I was watching Another Simple Favor and A Simple Favor. It's the movie with Blake Lively and Anna Kendrick.
Yeah.
And they're both credited as EPs on both of the films.
Yeah.
They probably didn't do a lot of producing work. Their work probably was, I mean, this is total speculation, of course, but their work was probably mostly with like financing. Maybe they helped get other people attached, like some of the other actors or something, but it's mostly like just a vanity thing for the most part. The next producer is a line producer, and if you want to learn about this in more detail, this is coming. Check out episode 3 of the IFI podcast with Matthew Robinson. Matthew is great. He does a phenomenal job breaking down the line producer. But this is what I kind of learned about line producing. It's the producer deals with the macro. So all of the location, like they deal with like, hey, let's get this location. And the line producer literally just lives on Excel producing stuff line by line. So they often so the producer is like, okay, we have a $1 million budget for set construction, and the line producer is like, okay, out of that 1 million, the like 100K will go to hiring this production company, 150 will go to getting the materials, 100 will go to permits, like stuff like that. With budgeting, the producer is about the macro and the line producer is about the micro.
Indeed. Great episode, by the way. Matthew Robinson, yeah, exactly. Did a really good job of explaining exactly what they do. I always thought like a line producer was sort of just like someone who almost keeps time for like a production. But that's like just not the case at all.
Yeah.
But like, for example, a good thing they can do also is like if you have a script and you're like, oh, I wonder how much the script is gonna cost. They can look at that script and probably give you a pretty good breakdown of how much it's gonna cost. So. Yeah. Line producers are very important, and if you have to hire one, hire Matthew Robinson.
True. Next up, what do we got?
You got the production manager or the UPM. That is actually I don't you take over this one. I don't know what to say here.
So the production manager is just a lot of this is like it can be wrapped up into the first AD's role if you're on a smaller set, and a lot of times it is. But the production manager is like an extension of the producer. Once again, these like a few are just kind of like an extension of the producer. So like the production manager, they help the producer with logistics. They help getting contracts in place. Basically all the kind of minute stuff that the producer doesn't necessarily want to deal with, the production manager will take it. It's just kind of like a producer's assistant, basically.
Yeah. And then a quick side note also with the producers, if you ever watch the Oscars and you see someone win Best Picture, you're going to see a bunch of like rando people go up there and you'll be like, what, why did Tarantino not win for bubble? I don't think, has the Tarantino won the Best Picture? I don't know. Maybe. Anyway, for example, if Tarantino were to win a Best Picture, you might be confused on why he doesn't go up and like actually hold the award. It's because it goes to the producers. And then in terms of like who like actually owns the film, that's a hard debate, but like it generally kind of comes down to like it is the producer's films at the end of the day.
Yeah, a lot of the times it is the producer.
Yeah.
Fun fact though, because normally the producers, it's like oftentimes there's multiple producers on a big film, and like the producer would be like Warner Bros. Or Universal or something like that. Like it wouldn't be one specific person. I believe Ryan Coogler with Sinners was the first person ever to have a IP return clause in his contract.
Oh, interesting.
So after 25 years, Coogler actually owns the IP and the film Sinners.
That's kind of cool.
Which is something that nobody ever gets. Because like I believe Universal owns Oppenheimer in perpetuity.
Yeah, just like forever.
Yeah.
until they dissolve or whatever.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And then the last one for production is production assistant or PA. That's just kind of like your lower level, like entry level position.
Yeah.
Going out to get coffee, helping move things around. There's just like someone on set to help with the like just help deal with things.
Yeah, not much to be said for a PA, but you're gonna see them on every set. If it's a commercial, if it's an indie film, if it's a Marvel film, like you're gonna see them on just everywhere. PAs are exactly probably the most entry level position on any kind of video shoot. So
yeah, let's talk about the director. What does the director do?
Yes, well, I'm a director. A director is God, I suck. I'm a shitty director. But a director is someone who essentially just leads the creative vision of the film. That basically means like, and this can be some directors don't write the script. Some directors just look at the script and they basically translate the screenplay into a visual medium. And they obviously work with everyone else to do that. It's not the director like holding the camera. He's not usually going to be like choosing and micromanaging, or her. Sorry, I don't want to be sexist here. But the director is not going to be like actually doing a lot of the stuff physically. They're going to be basically directing people to do that to help them achieve the visual look the visual look, feel, and atmosphere that they want.
Yeah, exactly. They're in charge of the creative aspects of the film, essentially. For the first assistant director, we've talked about this kind of at length on this podcast. The first AD is kind of a misnomer because from the way it sounds like it sounds like, oh, they're helping the director direct people, but that's not it at all. They are much more of a producer logistical role than that. So they schedule out the shoots. They send out the call sheets, they look at the shot list, they do a schedule for the shot list, and if you're running behind, the first AD will be the asshole on set that lets you know that. Yep. That'll tell you to hurry up. They basically are just in charge of keeping time on the production and also doing a lot of the logistical stuff that the director doesn't want to, so that they can just focus on the creative choices.
Exactly. And then next up we have the second assistant director. I believe that's just going to be like basically an assistant to the first AD, more or less, and just kind of handling the more micro shit that the first AD is either too lazy to or doesn't want to do.
Yeah, basically. And then the script supervisor is the person in charge of tracking continuity on set. So they'll make sure that between takes, nothing changes, like the level of water is the same on different shots if an actor is drinking it, that all the plants in the background are facing the same direction in every take, stuff like that. They will also have a notepad or an iPad or whatever on hand to write down what take the director likes most on set. So if you do like 5 takes of any given shot, after the director's like, okay, we can move on to the next one, I like the 4th take the most, the script supervisor will write that down and give that to post-production so that their time can be expedited.
Exactly. And then next up, we have the screenwriter. Pretty straightforward. This is the person who writes the screenplay or the script. And I also do that. So it's just basically, yeah, exactly. You just write the script.
Yeah. A lot of these later ones are just kind of self-explanatory. Like, for example, what does the location manager do?
They manage the locations and they choose them.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but basically it's like the producer's like, hey, yeah, I need a bank for this. They'll email various banks or go into various banks, or oftentimes with the location manager, you really want to have a lot of contacts. So if you have like a friend who manages a bank, you can reach out to them. They manage the locations. And the same with casting director. Like, what does the casting director do?
Right. A casting director is going to be someone who, if you have like auditions or whatever, they're going to be there. They're going to be basically trying to find the actors to play the characters. On a smaller set, you're not going to really see you'll see a casting director be morphed or merged with like, a producer or the director even. It's just a thing that you kind of do with smaller sets. You're going to morph a lot of shit together, but yeah, essentially they're working with the director and the creative people to choose the best actors for the characters.
Yeah, it's a director that is exclusively focused on getting the best casting choice for each role.
Oh, they also keep in mind. They also look at not only the individual characters though. They also are making sure that like, hey, if I cast this guy and I cast this girl, are they going to have good chemistry together?
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, because like you might have two people who like look the part like exactly, but they might not work well together. So the casting director takes in a lot of different things into account as well, not just the individual as well. Like it's the whole cast. So.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then next up is the DP, or director of photography. Hey, that's a me.
That's you.
So the DP is basically in charge of the whole visual aesthetic of the film. From things like they can help in choosing locations, but oftentimes it's kind of just given to them. They help design them in a way. They're basically just in charge of the whole visual thing. And this is kind of where it's like you can tell where, like, at the top of the hierarchy and the pyramid for any given department, the descriptions are going to be longer because the DP is in charge of everything with the visual look, like what lenses to do for any given shot, the quality and tone of the lighting that you use, what mood you want to set with the lighting, and how to achieve that. But as we get kind of lower down, like the camera department, as the roles get more specialized, as they get more technical, the descriptions are going to be very, very quick. But the DP is, long story short, in charge of designing the whole visual look for the film. And there are countless different aspects and variables that go into designing that, and we can talk about that all day if we wanted to, but
Yeah.
I think for the sake of expediting this process, they're in charge of how the film looks. If you look at a film and you're like, wow, that looks really good, do not credit the director, credit the DP.
Or credit the director. That's also fine.
No,
That's also valid. Also called cinematographer, just to get that out there. And then next up, we have the camera operator. Exactly. And this is going to be usually on a smaller set. Once again, if you have like a DP, it's just you're going to probably do a bunch of stuff all together. There's DPs who are also the director, who are also a camera operator. Shout out Parker Viale. But yeah, someone who like literally is operating the camera.
Yeah, and like with what DP it is, they often can decide, because there are a lot of high level DPs that do like to be their own cam ops as well. Greg Fraser comes to mind. He was the DP of Batman, the Batman, sorry, Dune and Dune 2 and Dune Messiah. He is a DP who really likes to operate the camera as well. But sometimes it just kind of depends on the style of the DP. First assistant camera. So this is also called the focus puller, although that's not everything that they do. The first assistant camera is in charge of pulling focus, of course, but they also build the camera. So you see like a camera, normally it's like this big to start, and then eventually it becomes that behemoth that you see in a lot of the behind the scenes photos. They're in charge of making that, not that big for that big sake, but they're in charge of knowing what tools you need, knowing what transmitter you need, how to attach the transmitter to the camera, where to put the transmitter to the camera, building the rig up essentially, in addition to pulling focus and kind of being like, hey, if there's a problem with the camera, the first AC will know how to deal with it.
Exactly. And then that also brings us to the second assistant camera, the second AC, also known as like the clapper loader. That we actually made a full episode on the film slate if you want to check that out.
Yeah.
But God, I feel like that's going to happen a lot in this episode.
Probably.
Yeah, they basically are going to be in charge of that, the most, famous icon of cinema, the film slate. They're going to be announcing the scenes, which helps the post-production. And they are also going to be loading, if you're on a film set, they're going to be loading the film and keeping track of each film roll that you put into the camera, as well as the like SD cards or just any digital card medium that you're going to have on a digital set. But they're very useful, and they are you're going to probably see some version of it even on smaller sets.
Yeah. And then they are also just a general assistant to the first AC if the first AC needs anything. Next up, the DIT, or the digital imaging technician. This I admittedly don't have a ton of knowledge about this role. I have a brief overview of it. Basically, the DIT is the camera department's tech support, and is like, if there's a problem that the first AC can't solve, the DIT should be able to solve it. And they are also in charge of offloading footage at the end of the day and getting it kind of ready to be passed on to the editors. Honestly, this is probably a role that we could do a whole episode on.
Yeah.
Or at least like a good portion, and like a film roles. Actually, fuck it. Let's do a film film crew in depth coming soon. Um,
Yeah, we could.
ooh, actually, okay, I have a good idea. I'll tell you after the podcast. But yeah, so basically they just like manage the footage. So when the shoot day is done, they get the SD cards or film rolls, if you're pretentious,
Yeah.
from the camera and either sent them off to be scanned or put them on a card. Sometimes, if the director wants to look at dailies, that is the DIT's job. Not necessarily cutting them, but at minimum applying a LUT to them, so that it's viewable to the director.
Indeed. Furthering the camera department, we have the Steadicam or gimbal operator. Again, on a bigger set, you're probably going to see the Steadicam operator, or you're going to see Steadicam operators, because Steadicams and all that stuff can be very, very, very expensive to rent. And so they essentially, it's very straightforward. They operate the Steadicam, and then on a lower set or even higher sets too, you're going to see the gimbal operates the gimbal. Is that usually the same as the camera operator? Is it the same person? Okay, so separate.
So Steadicams are actually very difficult to operate. There are some, like, a lot of the times you think so. Steadicams are a device that you attach a gimbal to. So the gimbal is what actually holds the camera. It's the 3 motors on top of it, but the Steadicam is like the rest of it. So like the big like, shaft that attaches to the vest.
Yeah.
Mostly to alleviate weight pressure, because we experienced this. I was operating like a 25-pound gimbal for like a minute, and it was not great. But because I could operate it fine, but when you add the additional part being the Steadicam, the barrier to entry and the difficulty of operation increases exponentially. So you often have to get trained specifically to operate the Steadicam, and just because you can run around with a 3-axis gimbal and get cool parallaxes with your FX3 does not mean that you can operate a Steadicam properly.
Right. Yeah, I think that's all to be said for that. And then we have the drone operator. Do you want to explain what a drone operator does?
Operate the drones. Holy shit. Yeah, I know.
Essentially.
Yeah, it's a whole different skill set than operating a Steadicam or a camera, and a lot of the times you do have all the time you do have to be licensed by the FAA in order to operate a drone for commercial use.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people don't really care about unless you want to do it as your thing.
As like your job. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, what's the key grip?
The key grip. Oh, I actually don't know. We never had anyone as a key grip on our podcast.
Shout out Dean Garcia.
We did. We have Dean Garcia.
Yeah.
A key grip is going to be the head grip that manages rigging and camera support, which I guess essentially means that they're like the king of all the grips.
Yeah, they're the head grip.
But what's a grip? I guess that's
so. Okay, so
or should we explain it?
Yeah, let's just go over the hierarchy real quick.
Okay.
So within the grip department, there's 3 different positions. There's the key grip, the best boy grip, which is like the assistant to the. Okay. The most prominent grip is the key grip. The second most prominent one is the best boy grip. The third most prominent grip is a grip, and then all the other grips. The grips are in charge of. You can watch the episode with Dean Garcia to get a better explanation, but they're in charge of like rigging all of the lighting fixtures and camera and specialty camera rigs. So if you've ever seen like multiple lights on top of like a crane or a cherry picker, that's all within the key grip to do. When you go into a studio and there needs to be like, I've seen videos of people making like a 20 by 20 soft source up mounted onto the ceiling. That is all the grips jobs. So the grips basically just do manual labor to get the lighting modifiers to where they need to be for the gaffer. And the best boy grip is above the grips, tell the grips what to do, and then the Q grip is the king of the grips. There's a specialty grip called the dolly grip, which specifically does stuff with dollies or specialty movement shots. And then you kind of look at the same thing where when you're thinking about lighting stuff. So the gaffer is the person who is in charge of the lighting setup. The gaffer and the key grip are often kind of side by side. The gaffer is probably a little bit over the key grip just because they tell the key grip what to do, but the gaffer takes direction from the director of photography in terms of like what quality of light, and by quality I'm talking about like hard light or soft light or middle harsh light, what quality of light, where to put that, and then the gaffer kind of decides what to do exactly with the equipment that they have access to.
Indeed. I think that's all
Yeah.
of the electrical department.
Yeah, and then the gaffer is right above the best boy electric, is the gaffer's assistant who helps organize all the electricians, which are the lowest people in the G&E in the electric department. That's I don't even know if there are electricians on a lot of sets. It's
Right.
most of the time just like gaffer into Best Boy Electric
Yeah.
with a team of grips helping set up and bring the gaffer's idea of how they're going to do it to life.
Yeah. Again, check out the last episode if you want a more in-depth explanation of like sort of just a brief overview of like all of those, and especially the key grip role. And our episode with Ryan Thomas. I don't remember what that one was, but he has some experience with the electrical department, and he had some good insight there. I guess that means we're moving on to the art department.
Yep.
You're gonna see. So the production designer. The production designer, essentially is going to control the visual look of like what you see on the camera in terms of like the actual like set. I believe.
Yeah.
I'm not confusing that with another role. Okay, good. Yeah, so the production designer, yeah, exactly. They're gonna basically like if you're filming at a like let's say you have a house, like a living room, they're gonna be like, okay, a living room is gonna have this, this, and this. Let's get that there. One thing you will see, and there's a lot of tells for an indie project or a student film. One of the biggest tells you'll hear from a lot of people is a lack of production design. You're gonna see basically like inside of a house it might be like an Airbnb, for example, super stripped down, no paintings on like the walls, no bookshelves, nothing, just like basically chair, table, walls, that's it. A production designer is going to save your ass and make it like look like a real house.
Yeah, a production designer is basically just making things look lived in, or basically just dealing with all of the, making the sets look like not sets, basically. And within the production designer, so they're the head of the whole art department. Within the art department, there are a couple of different sub departments, I guess, with sets. So the set designer and the set decorator. The set designer is in charge of like making the plans for the sets, and then the sets decorator is the person to actually decorate them.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also doing custom props, whether that's to be placed within sets, whether that's to be used by the talent. The prop master is the person in charge of all of the prop work, and then the prop makers are the ones who actually make the props. So like we said at the start, you can kind of just see like the corporate ladder of like manager and then assistant manager and then people who actually do the jobs, basically.
Yeah. Like again, like you could go for like hundreds and hundreds of people like in like individual roles, but those roles are often just like assistant to this person, second assistant to the assistant of that. Like it goes way crazy, and it can get very bureaucratic but real fast.
Yeah.
So moving to the, I guess, costume department, you're gonna have someone, the costume designer or like wardrobe. That's gonna be someone who basically designs costumes, and that can actually be really, really expensive. We talked with Matthew Robinson about how expensive that can like realistically be. Like it's sometimes tens of thousands of dollars for custom made garments. And so yeah, basically just in charge of the costume look for the people, and you're gonna see that. Like wardrobe, you'll see that. I mean, every set should have someone who is in charge of that if you can afford it,
Yeah.
And
then we're not going to talk about it specifically, but like you can kind of go under the assumption of that with all these departments that we're not going into depth. There's the costume designer, and then there's the like tailors who actually sew any custom costumes, kind of like stuff like that. You will see that as a pattern throughout the rest of these. And if we don't get into any specifics on any future departments, there probably are like 4 or 5 people under the department heads that are doing some of the work as well.
Exactly. And then, so next we have the key makeup artist. This is basically someone who's going to concept what the makeup will look like. You're going to have the actual makeup artist, someone below that. Sometimes you can probably consolidate that role, obviously. But that's going to be the people who actually apply the makeup. Hairstylist. So this is all hair, and this is all of the hair and makeup department. A hairstylist is going to again look at the style of hair, is going to look at everyone's hair, make sure that it all matches whatever kind of set they're doing. I would imagine the hairstylist had a great job on Breaking Bad for just making everyone fucking bald. literally every male protagonist is just bald in that show.
Genius.
So yeah, exactly. And then You're going to have the prosthetics and the FX makeup artist. This is going to be someone who does a little bit more specialty work with the makeup, which means like they're going to do like gore. They're going to do like also like manage some special effect, like the actual like special effects if there is one, like practical effects essentially, and then applying prosthetics to people's like faces, arms, wherever.
Yeah. So normal makeup artist making them look good, and then this SFX makeup artist making them look fucking destroyed.
Yeah.
And then I believe, I'm not entirely sure, but I believe there is the prosthetic slash SFX makeup artist is in charge, or at least under the SFX director for stuff like squibs.
Yeah.
Which would be like making it look like somebody got shot. Obviously, on smaller films, it'll probably just be that person, but there will be like a special effects supervisor if extensive special effects is needed, which I don't think we actually have on here, but that's another one I just forgot.
True.
And then for audio, there's the production sound mixer, which is the person who actually records all the on-set audio. They have all the microphones going into their mixer and mix the levels and make sure they all sound good. The boom operator is the person who holds the boom mic. This may or may not be the same person as the production sound mixer. And then there is like sometimes, oftentimes not, but sometimes there is a specialty person for a specialty microphone setup, specifically like lavaliers.
Yep. And then you're going to have, like the sound utility, which, oh, wait, sorry, that's what you said. God.
Yeah.
I'm not paying attention. Yeah, you're going to have so going into the more sort of less technical stuff with the film, you're going to have the set medic. Again, just if you are doing a scene, someone could get hurt, you want to have someone who can help them.
Yeah, same with stunt coordinator. Yeah. If there's intensive stunts, of course, there's going to be a stunt coordinator and then probably people under them helping facilitate those stunts. And then intimacy coordinator, if you don't know what this one is.
Yeah, we had an episode with Sean Sylvain, an intimacy coordinator down in LA. She gave a lot of great insight about what they do. They basically check with all the actors, make sure they're aware of like what if you're going to have not even just for like, sexual scenes, it could be for scenes with like handshakes, hugs, kisses. Like they're basically making sure like, hey, you guys know that this is going to happen. You guys cool with that? Great. Let's celebrate. And then, essentially super, super straightforward.
Yeah. So that's all the production roles that we're going to go over. And now we're going to briefly touch on some of the post-production roles. A lot of these are kind of self-explanatory, right? The editor, they edit the film. Whoop-de-doo. A colorist, they do color on the film, because a lot of the times the way that a film is shot is not how you actually end up seeing it. First you make it look normal by putting it to Rec 709, which is this is just kind of they adjust the color and the tone of the footage basically. There's VFX, so if any VFX shots are needed, there's the VFX artist, and then there's the VFX supervisor who supervises all of it. A lot of the times, if there is a VFX supervisor for really intensive VFX stuff, they will also be on set, because a lot of the times the VFX people will need like scans of the area to get like exact measurements of where things were. Corridor Digital is a phenomenal YouTube channel, if you want to look at the real like how VFX actually works and what you actually need for all of this stuff.
Corridor crew, sponsor us.
sponsor us now, please. And then after the editor, there's the assistant editor too. This one's it depends based on project to project, but for the most part, the assistant editor is just there to help the editor organize footage. So a lot of the times they'll be doing something called string outs, which is basically they take the video clip, they take the associated audio clip, synchronize them, and then basically cut it to just the usable part so that the editor can do their job faster.
Yeah. And then you're going to have the sound designer. The sound designer is going to be someone who creates the soundscape of the film. They're going to be layering audio, sound effects, making it sound realistic. If I touch the microphone like this, they're going to add a little sound effect there so you can hear it. And then that's also very closely tied to the Foley artist. There's some sounds that you just can't get a stock sound effect for, so they're going to make custom sound effects that are tailored exactly to what the film needs. And then for the last two roles we have today, for the post-production and just for the episode as well, we have the music supervisor. This is going to be someone who reaches out, gets music rights for films. If you have like a copyrighted song, you don't want to probably put that in your film without permission. You can get really in trouble for that. So they're going to basically take care of that for you. And then you're going to have the composer who's going to write the original score. They're going to make music specifically for your film. And they are obviously a very important part of filmmaking. Some of the most iconic moments of film come from the score. So, that's all I have to say about that.
If you want to know what a composer does, check out
Right.
IndieFilm Insider episode 4 with Ryan Leonard.
Yes, and we also have a composer for upcoming film. I study people for a living, so hopefully that all goes well.
Yeah. That is, for the most part, the crew list that we're going to go over. Obviously, the stuff we mentioned, 55 people, nowhere near enough. And if there's any crew that we forgot that you think we should have touched on or that you have special experience with, let us know down in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, and just make sure to check out our last episode with Key Grip Dean Garcia for a more in-depth explanation of that. And in the future, we may do another episode where we kind of touch on some more things specifically, maybe a department, who knows. But for the most part, I think that's it.
Yeah, I think we'll probably go into a little bit in depth on some of the rules that we need to go into. Obviously, a lot of the people that we've had on the show, they do specific roles and then kind of give us a little breakdown of that. But I have an idea for an episode that I'll run by after this. That being said, that will do it for this episode of IndieFilm Insider. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy this content, do all the YouTube bullshit, like, comment, subscribe, comment down below. Like we said, if we missed anyone that we, fucking hell, dude, it's been so long. Not even that long, but anyways. My Instagram is at onkar.dp. It'll be down in the description if you want to check it out. Jake, where can they find you?
You can find me at Jake Rossbell on Instagram, and also check out our production company, oj.media. I believe it's at oj orange.
I think it's Orange Juice Media.
Ojuice.
Orangejuice.media.
Yeah, you can find it on Instagram, YouTube, and thank you for watching.
And cut.
And cut.